again, it's nice to see your face. Like one of the things I really, really enjoy about doing these interviews is seeing people's faces because I'm like it's been almost 3 months since we started this.
Yeah, it's crazy. I like it too. It's funny though, for me, the one thing about the Zoom meetings with like we've done beers with friends or whatever,
Okay.
and so it's like, you know, you people you get to see all the time before this happened, is you catch up with them a little bit, like maybe not once a month or once every few weeks or whatever. But the good thing about it is like now I can like have a beer with people who live across the country, which I never like. It would be way far and few between. Where now it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if you're down the street or like in Vancouver or something. It's like it's the same having beers with people on the Zoom. So I like that about it. It's allowed me to catch up with a few people that way. Um, but and the next step, which I don't know how soon people are going to start doing the like social distancing in parks and stuff, but I did that with my wife and two couple friends of ours.
Okay.
Last week we went to a park. It was like it's actually not really a park. It's the experimental farm where my wife works,
Right.
and we met up there and we all like stayed our like 6 or 8 feet away. But it was the same thing. Like seeing faces like this, it's like seeing people in person, even if you can't really be near them, is also awesome too. So I'm hoping that the second wave doesn't hit too hard and we can like start getting into that a bit more. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I guess time will tell.
Yeah. Second wave is. I know that second wave is coming in China right now, but I think we're a little bit protected from second wave because for the most part, people have been reasonable. My concern is just like when everybody, Jamie, he's works at Lowe's, and so he was talking to me about how people went en masse to the hardware stores and stuff, and it's like, okay, just because restrictions are lifting doesn't mean we need to like crowd everything. Just
Yeah,
like, I mean,
it's totally true. It's one of those things where um, you have to, or I chose to like manage my risk. So it's like I'll do this one thing. I'll try and keep like now that I've got a routine, I'm trying to keep that routine. And so far it's been okay. I think having sun has really helped me because I think that the long winter spring thing that we had was not the greatest for being at home. But I have a little backyard, and so now I can get the barbecue going and I can cut the grass or do some chores outside, and I'm loving that the fresh air and the vitamin D and all that stuff.
it's true. The sun makes a huge difference. Like I tried cycling in the middle of March, at the end of March and stuff, and it was a little bit difficult to get into a rhythm because of the cold weather. And then now in May, I've just been like going for it. And one of the things I've observed, because I kind of go onto the Gatineau side, which is great now that everything's open over there, and I go up Britannia Beach, and I actually made it all the way to Canada. The amount of people, one thing that I've noticed, the amount of people that are out and just happy and stuff is great. And even on the Gatineau side, maybe a little bit to their detriment. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it was so restrictive in Quebec for so long, but they're out like a lot. There's a ton of people on their beaches, like more than, I think they're allowed to have 10. So they're like, there's so many of them. It's,
Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be it's still going to be a roller coaster for a while, I mean, yeah.
what, this is actually a great, we're gonna go with the introduction here of like, hey everybody, welcome to Getting to Know, episode 11. Today's
Yes.
guest is our number 11 for the men's team, the striker, Mr. Ben. Ben has been with us. He joined us off the forums in the middle of 2013. No, a little bit earlier than that, actually, as part of a substitute package deal with with another club legend, Mark Toddy, and
Yeah, I
another.
was going to say Toddy brokered the deal, I guess.
Toddy's the one who brokered the deal. 3 of you came. One of you dropped off fairly quickly because he moved away. And then you and Mark have been with us since around that 2012, 2013 mark, which is impressive. Ben has, all the assists, goals, and stuff that I linked at the bottom. His two biggest things is like he's one of the most consistent people in the team for Legion. He shows up to pretty much all the games, and he's good for at least 1 goal a season. And so,
Big
a champ,
stats.
hey, those are important. Reliability is important. You need. There was one thing that I read once. It said an army made of the same piece will always lose. You don't need 11 Tareks, because if you have 11 Tareks, you'll lose, because Tarek isn't a perfect player. And you don't need 11 DeBoards. You don't need 11 Pachecos. You need one of everything.
Yeah.
You play an important role in that you are consistent, you work hard, and we always can count on you to be there, like a John Tavares, and you're always
Love it.
there because you work your ass off. And it made sense. I was like, how does this guy have such good conditioning? And speaking of the cycle, you cycled.
Yeah, I do. I got into that actually probably around the same time I started with the Legion because partly for I had no car, so I would bike like from probably April till December, doing all my errands or whatever, and then started when I got a better bike, started going longer distances. So I think my longest ride has probably been just a little upwards of 100 kilometers in a day, 100 and something. I'm not at that level of conditioning right now. I've just, same like with the weather being so bad in the spring, I was trying to run a bit. It was not going great. I didn't bring my bike out because it's so cold, I find under 10 degrees. But I've just got it out and I've been doing a little bit of biking in the last few weeks. So hopefully I'm going to get rid of those pandemic pounds and be fit for season time whenever that comes around. But yeah, like cycling does help. I find doing actually like variety of things helps because I play ball hockey a little bit too. And also once you get a little bit older, I find that I need to go to the gym just to keep my body like from not breaking down. It's weird because it's like, it seems like you're doing more to your body when you're doing all that stuff. But on the other hand, it just keeps you together. So when I first started with soccer, I was getting injured all the time.
Yeah, there's something to be said about like, there's the P90X and then there's an Insanity, which I know some of the 47 staff members are doing. These types of exercises, they promote muscle confusion, which is kind of along the lines of what you're saying. You do a different type of exercise to confuse your body, and then it apparently helps accelerate muscle growth. So it's a little bit kind of like what you're saying, I think.
For me, it's sort of like, I guess, you work your muscles in different ways. So that like, if you do the same exercise over and over and over, that's where you're going to wear things out. And so if you do different ways to strengthen things different ways, it helps a lot.
Yeah, the return on investment definitely goes down less. And, like, so besides, going for runs and cycling, how have you been keeping busy during this whole time?
I have not been going for runs or cycling really. So I've been like, I think actually that's probably the biggest hit that I took on my mental health was not having physical outlet. So bought a townhouse in January. And so when COVID hit, it actually pushed both my wife and myself to get the house set up faster because we are actually both can work from home. So we're really lucky that way. But we didn't really have anywhere to work from home set up because we focused on before all this was happening, we were focusing on getting like the master bedroom nice and the living room set up so we could like relax. But as soon as COVID hit, then we both were like, oh, we got to get our offices set up. So since then, we've been doing a lot of house stuff. I play guitar and I paint. So once I got my studio set up, it's been great. I haven't really painted, but I've been playing a lot of guitar. And the only thing that's weird about that is my office is also my studio space. So it's like I work from 9 to 5. I go downstairs and like have supper and then come back up. And so I'm in this room like 16 hours a day, or I don't know, something crazy, 12 hours a day. So that part, that's also probably another reason I was so happy that we've got some kind of warm weather.
Yeah, so many threads to pick apart there on everything you said, but the importance of having your own separate room, like there are some people, not many, that I know that like weren't able to create a separation between work and rest. And that's so important. Like I'm blessed to be in a sort of a townhouse type apartment where I have two rooms. And so
Yeah.
I just gutted the guest room and made it an office. And so now I have
Nice.
to create like this other thing. But you're I remember when Chris in episode 6 played the guitar and I said more than half the members don't play. I know, but I was thinking Ben plays. And I remember you also, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you saying you played the bass.
Yeah, I used to play in a band when I was in university called the Approachables, and it was a lot of fun. We probably played for like 4 or 5 years, from probably second, third year university until people started getting jobs and moving away a couple of years after university finished. But yeah, it was super fun. I started playing guitar after that because playing the bass, like just on your own, isn't all that rewarding. So yeah, so I've been playing regularly since then, and not a lot of formal training, so some sort of tread in water. But I think I'm finally starting to learn how to use YouTube to learn some stuff, which I never took the time to do before, and so I feel like I've been making some strides lately. It's great.
That's awesome. What kind of music did you guys play?
Um, we put sort of like indie rock, I guess. We like a lot of 70s in pop song stuff, I guess, guitar rock, but with like a bit of a sense of humor.
That kind of makes sense. For some reason, I pictured you as an indie guy, like not
Yeah,
the 70s pop rock, but an indie guy for some reason.
yeah,
It's true.
I like that kind of stuff. It's probably because you see me wearing band shirts and stuff too. I wear probably a lot of band shirts around.
Yeah, I just noticed you were wearing the Sonic Youth shirt, and I don't
Yeah,
don't know much about them, I'll admit, but they do ring a bell. I think they were on Guitar Hero.
probably they're a really good guitar band, really a bit discordant and stuff too, but like classic act.
I see also that you have the instrument behind there. Were you hoping to outdo Chris or?
Oh. No, I'm not. I'm not much of a performer. I'm actually like I'm trying to like develop that, I guess, but I'm not ready. What I've been doing lately is recording. So I just with GarageBand got a little bit of gear, some mics and stuff, and so maybe after this is done, I'll have some like stuff I'll be happy to share. But I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I was just about to say if you've got something to share, I can put it in the outro at the end of this. But yeah, I respect that. Like one of the things that people may not know about me is that I like to write stories from time to time, and I don't
Cool.
really like sharing my stories with anybody. So I feel you. Like it just has to be to the point where you're like comfortable enough, and then I just share it with random internet people.
Nice. I mean, it's a, like for these things for me, it's the doing it is what's rewarding right now, and I feel like I want to share it, but I'm also not ready thinking my craft is good enough. And so I think if I can't speak for you obviously, but I feel like once you're happy with it and you're ready to share it with someone, then it will be ready. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's because I have high standards, but also part of it would maybe be less fun if I was sharing it and like I don't know. Yeah.
um, yeah, I I'm very critical. I'm very hard on myself. So it's along the same lines. It's along the same thought process. But you know what? I admire anyone that can pick up an instrument because I don't. I unfortunately have not to this point. I'm hoping to very soon, but I won't say much about that just yet. But I'm hoping to pick up an instrument, and because I've always admired the people that can, and I've tried. I tried to pick up the guitar as I mentioned in the interview with Chris, but just never pushed myself to do it. So I'm hoping to do that real soon.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like that kind of stuff. It's really easy to get down on yourself, but short practices and like repetition, I think, are like when you start, just like with like if someone's learning to long distance run or something like that, you don't try and run a half marathon when you're starting out. You run and you walk, you run and you walk,
Right.
and there's so many resources now that like I find I learn a lot better from someone, but there's also like YouTube, like basically you could find any tutorial on any instrument probably for beginner, intermediate. and whatever. And so it's really satisfying. Actually, I've been trying to learn some like blues techniques. And so like there's this style of blues called fingerstyle blues, which is just sort of like picking. And I've picked up a few lines from YouTube for that, and you can just sit and play with them for however, like an afternoon if you feel like it. And it's just really nice to relax like that. And also you can also see your progress, which is great.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And again, huge kudos to you for keeping on that. It seems like you're the kind of person that, is able to stay motivated, is able to stay focused and just push themselves.
It's sort of a little bit of that, but it's, for me, I have a real problem getting started on things. So I always, like, I've heard like Nick Cave is a musician and singer and stuff, and he writes these really neat sort of diary blog entries. But I heard something a long time ago about how he talked about how he gets dressed up in the morning when he's working on something, and he just puts on his suit and tie or whatever his rock and roll gear is, goes down to his office and starts writing down there. And so he's like, you know what, it's a job. And so it's a bit different when you're doing it as a hobby, but he's like, it's a job. So you just need to sit down and start. And then if you do that, then stuff will happen. And I find that when I finally make myself do that, just sit down and start, then I, like, even if I was tired beforehand, you forget about it. You get engrossed with whatever you're doing, and it's great. The hard part is sitting down and starting. And so, I mean, there's so much content out there, right? It's so easy to like, oh, just check YouTube for this. Oh, half an hour goes by, you're like, dang. And so, but yeah, so I feel like for me, it's like I'm half really lazy, and half then when I sit down and do something, so it's a lot of fun, and so stuff gets done.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting because you definitely you've not appeared to me, at least, as someone who would have a hard time being motivated to start, not to continue, but to start. And there's a lot of truth in what you're saying about, how Nick mentioned it's a job, because it is one of those underappreciated things about the arts, is that it is a job and people have to devote time to their craft. And I feel like a lot of the reason why some artists, some aspiring artists or aspiring stand-up comedians, that's on my mind a lot, fail is because they don't put the work in. Like, I got masterclass to watch some of the videos, very interesting stuff. And
yeah, I've been wanting to do that actually.
I highly recommend it. I ended up splitting it with someone else because they have a
Cool.
buy one get one, so
Yeah,
I didn't rent the full 240.
nice.
But I've been watching, one of the ones I've been watching is Judd Apatow, because I wanted to learn more about writing. And he was talking about how you should set aside 4 or 5 hours a day to write jokes if you want to be a comedian. Just 4 or 5, because you have to put the work and just sit down and write jokes. And I feel like a lot of people don't put in that kind of effort to their craft.
Yeah, no, and I've been it's funny because you say that, because I've been also like, I just read a book called In Writing by Stephen King. Okay. So I'm not even a huge Stephen King fan. Like I think he's got his thing, and he's great. And I've read some of his books, but not a lot, because I've never really, I guess the horror side of it just doesn't really appeal to me. But I really enjoy hearing about how people do things, and how they got started, and what were the things that worked for them and not worked for them. And it was a super weird coincidence, because I read that book, and it talks about, I mean, the best part of the book was actually not about the writing. It was about how what happened when he was growing up, just like as a kid. And he started writing stories as a kid. And so that part was really, like, the way he wrote it was, you could clearly see he really enjoyed exploring that. So I finished that book, and then I started reading a book he sort of recommended. At the end of the book, he lists a bunch of authors that he's likes, and so I read the first Jack Reacher book. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't expecting a whole lot, because there's like probably, I don't know how many books there are in that series. And as soon as something is like 20 books, I'm sort of like, I mean, it's like popcorn or candy or something at that point, you're like, well, but I really enjoyed the first book. And the funny thing about it was, it started with a preface from the author, and he talked about how he wrote this book. And so it was like this great, like, segue for me, and just like serendipitous or coincidence or whatever the heck. And I was like, like so impressed with how he described all his decisions that he used to set up the book. Like he was like, the character is like, I don't like underdogs, so I didn't want my private eye novel to be about some underdog with an alcohol problem. And so he made his guy like 6'5", trained in the military, a cop, you know, like smart, all these things. And so then the problem becomes, how do you make it a story interesting about someone who's not the underdog? Like what's the problems he comes up against? And so I just really enjoyed like that almost more than the book, and the book was great too. But yeah, so I'm totally into that stuff. And
I am 100% going to put down In Writing by Stephen King as one of my books to read. That's another thing I've been doing. I've been picking up a lot of reading, as
nice.
as avid fans might know. I mentioned that earlier.
I actually I did see that, and I was going to ask you what you're reading right now.
I read a lot of nonfiction stuff. That's a lot of what I've been doing. Right now, I finished reading a book on Seabiscuit. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm reading this book on emotional intelligence.
Ooh.
And I got a shipment of books in today. This is about half of them, but this is the next batch of books that I'll be reading. Oh, I've got it like this. So Tuesdays with Maury, which was recommended to me. This one was also recommended to me, A More Beautiful Question, and then The Power of Moments. So all three were recommended to me. I take
Cool.
recommendations for nonfiction very seriously, and that way it gives me something to discuss. So
Oh, nice.
I'm,
I find, sorry, I was just gonna say, I find nonfiction hard, but it's something I've been trying to like work on reading. And I mean, biographies are pretty easy because that's a story, in a sense. But I've been trying to read other nonfiction too, but it's a lot more. Like I can read novels like just like all day long, but so I'm working on that. It's really there's so much knowledge out there, but it's so hard. It's hard to focus sometimes.
I really love learning. That's something I've always loved, and I've not done enough of it. That's why I got the master class. That's why I'm reading these books. And I don't know, there's something about nonfiction that really appeals to me. I think it's because my father is also a huge nonfiction reader. So, some things rub off on you. But I appreciate you sharing that part with us. I could talk forever about books and stuff, but this is more about you than it is about me. We touched a little bit about the first memory with the club and stuff that you kind of came off the forum. Why don't we talk about, a bit about your first memory and then maybe your favorite memory with us?
Okay, sure. The first memory was Love and Aside. I'm pretty sure at U Ottawa, at the outdoor field.
Yep.
I don't remember us winning a lot, but it was fun. And
that we won 5 games. I'm gonna bring it up and I'm gonna put it here.
I think you know what
games.
What it is we started off. Well, obviously a new team, 11 aside, you need to be organized, and we were not. We got there, but it took some time finding positions and stuff, and it was great though. I think after we got going, but it doesn't feel that way for some reason. Maybe I don't know. That's just such a different game also than 7-a-side, I found. So I don't really feel like when I think of like playing footy sevens or Legion that I think about that one too much, just because it was like I had actually been playing on 11-a-side team my very first soccer back after becoming an adult. And so I hadn't played for years and years. And then I played on 11-a-side team before I started at footy sevens. And so I was kind of like, I just think it's sort of a normal, like it's not the same as what we normally do. And so it's sort of just, and I have the worst memory. So like, I only remember the subs and the ref and no linesman with like offsides with no linesman. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we I think we might have gone 4-5-1. Either way, I remember we finished roughly even. We did lose when we lost. The problem is that when we lost by a lot. It was like 10-0. And when we won, it was like squeaker little wins, like 1-0. So I get what you're saying. It's 11-a-side for me is always the way the game was meant to be played is what I love watching. But 7-a-side, I would say 7-a-side is a different game altogether. And, 5 is a different game onto itself. And beach soccer is a different game onto itself. Each one has their nuances. And because I grew up in all those places where 11-a-side was the big deal, for me, 11-a-side is like the OG. I'd actually never heard of 7-a-side until I moved to Canada.
I have never heard of it until like 2012.
Mm.
I grew up playing 11-a-side too, and my dirty secret is that I played goalie
Mm.
like the whole time till I had a career-ending injury in grade 9 or 10, and then and so yeah, so but yeah, like I never played 7-a-side until this, but now that's the way I know the game. I think because I've just been playing that.
What's your okay, so your background is you used to be a goalie. What's your reason for wanting to play up front now?
Well, I mean, I think it partly is just to do with, well, a couple things. One is I hurt like the injury I had, I separated my clavicle, or there's like a ligament right here. And so I don't remember it too well because it hurt quite a bit, but I dove in to get the ball and somebody kicked me, I think. That's what I was told. And so, um, yeah, exactly. It
That's
hurt a
so
lot.
cool.
And so, um, so that put me out, and I didn't enjoy like the sports for a little while after that because it was like I rehabbed for probably like 6 or 8 months, and then I can't throw overhand, or I can't. So it's my right arm. I'm right-handed, so it's a bit of a problem. But then also the other thing is, like, as a kid, I was pretty laid back. I was not that competitive. I was like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. I'm good with that. And so as an adult, I've learned um, that I am competitive a bit, and I like the attacking. I like the outfield positions more now. Like I just enjoy playing it more.
Mm.
So
Okay. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that sounds like a really, really painful injury, but it's
it was
go ahead.
no go.
It was a blessing in disguise, I think, that you don't remember it. Because I can tell you, if you remember that pain, it's not something you wanna keep.
Well, yeah, I remember on the car, like the ride home, it was the school team, and like I was in a van, and the van went on an on ramp to the highway or something. And I braced myself with that same arm, and it was like a flash of light went off in my head. So I was like, yeah, no, it was pretty good. It wasn't like funny. It's funny though because it wasn't like it was just pain. It wasn't. There was no blood. There was no like. It wasn't dangerous to me. It just was like pain. I don't know. So it's not that big a deal, but it was also painful.
That sucks. Nothing
Yeah.
to add to that, but that sucks. But I'm glad you're okay now
Yeah.
and that you're able to play with us. And, you've played a lot of games with us. You've been with us for many years. Amongst all those years, what's your favorite or one of your favorite memories?
Well, that's funny how you put that all those years, because one of my favorite memories was it was at Carleton, I think. I mean, other than scoring like my goal of the season or whatever, there's a few good ones in there. But there was a game where Pachenko and I like killed it. We had great games. I don't remember the outcome of the game or if we won or anything like that. But after the game, you came and gathered up the team, and you're like, guys, I don't normally do this, but you wanted to point out a few players that had good games, and so you pointed out Pachenko, and you said, no, I've played a lot of years with this guy, and I can't believe how much he's progressed and how great a game he had today. And then you looked over at me, and you're like, and Ben, despite your advanced age, you did great. And so I get such a kick out of that. I've been telling that story for so long. It's a humble brag a little bit, but I'll never forget that. And I mean, it feels good, even though I'm old, to contribute here and there.
I can come off like such an asshole sometimes. I'm
No,
realizing, like, I'm really, really, like, I'm really happy that you took it the way that I meant it. But just
oh,
hearing it as you described it, I'm just like cringing a little bit, like, oh my god, I can't believe I
no.
actually said that.
It's always important to hear people, like, know where people's hearts are at, I think, and so I think that's evident with how you present yourself. So I wouldn't worry about it too much or at all. I thought it was great. And
I
yeah, it's an endearing memory. Like I said, I have really bad memories, and so I was trying to think about, what are some standout moments. And like, obviously there's been lots of drama on the team, but when I finally thought of that, I was like, oh yeah, that one always brings a smile on my face. So I
that's
got
a
to share
really
it.
that's a really unique memory, and I remember actually saying that to you and Pacheco. It was at Carleton, and I remember the you two hustled the hell out of it, and it was a game in which the usual this is what I mean. You need 11 different pieces because the usual superstars in that game, I wasn't playing in that match, and the usual superstars of that game weren't, performing, but it's a recreational game. So like performing is like, this is why I put it in quotations because it's like
Totally.
performing. And you and Pacheco stepped it up big time. And people, I can tell you, it's not just me. I've heard huge amounts of respect, not just for him, but for you as well, from some of the people that we would consider top performers. I know that Tarek and Dubord have both expressed to me on many occasions that you are a standout player, and it's almost like unexpected. And it's the same with Toddy. You guys, like, whether age is a real thing, whether we like to admit it or not, and you guys are the seniors on our team, and you're both killing it. You kill it. So I'm glad. It's a unique memory. I'm really happy that you took it the right way, and it makes me happy. I always try to make, the whole point of this club is to try and make some sort of connection and impact on people. So that brings a smile to my face.
I love it. I mean, I think that shows with like the stuff you're doing in the quarantine. These episodes are awesome, and it's the same kind of idea, and I think that's great.
Really appreciate that. And now I'm going to start asking you a little bit more club questions that I love asking. Like, for you, for example, who's the most hilarious member?
That's a really hard question because, like, I guess, I mean, we chat as a team like beforehand, but when I sat down to, like, if I think about this, I'm just sort of like nobody strikes me as super serious, and also nobody strikes me as like the class clown either. Mm-hmm. So, but I think I have to say Tarek, always, like, maybe not hilarious isn't quite the right word, but I like when he's out, even like on the sidelines, you're chatting with him, he's always got a like twinkle in his eye, and he's got something to say, or you don't know what he's going to do on the field either. And so that same sort of like that, like, who knows what's going to happen next. I think that comes from that same sort of place as humor. Like, it's got that mischievousness or whatever. And I really appreciate that about that style of play. I think it's great.
That's great. Okay. This one. You're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You're on the $1 million question. You have a phone lifeline left. Who do you call?
Well, I was going to say Pachenko because if he got it wrong, I couldn't like get mad at him. Like,
that's wonderful. Okay.
But then I saw a couple of these episodes with you, and I realized that your memory is like on point. So I was like, I'll just call Seb. Like.
Okay, I appreciate that. I tried. Okay.
And I think I was right because, like, you're just talking about all the nonfiction you're reading. You got the info.
The nonfiction stuff is relatively new. I've always had an interest in nonfiction, but the quarantine has definitely helped to push me read more. But I appreciate that. A nice compliment. I'm going to now ask you, which club member would you pick to do the Amazing Race with?
See, I've never even really watched The Amazing Race.
Okay.
But I would probably pick Toddy just because I know him the best. And, like, he's pretty unflappable, except for he can turn it on if necessary. So like, we would be a good team. Let's say that.
I think you guys would make a fantastic team. And out of all the pairings that have been described so far, I think you guys not only, like, it's not that you guys make the most sense, but you guys would have the most success, I think. Just, you have different skills, each of you complement. A shout out to Toddy. I know he posted this on his Facebook, so it is public domain. He lost his brother after a fight to cancer. So I, obviously messaged him, and I know a lot of people from the club have given out a lot of love and support, but a big hug and a big shout out to Mr. Toddy. I did want to interview him, but obviously for understandable reasons, he's been kind of keeping private these past few months, and I think it'll remain that way. But we are thinking of you, and we miss you, and I hope to see you real soon.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually realized that before people's 10 questions, I missed something that I do like to ask everybody, because I do like to bring some sort of positivity to the whole pandemic. What's one good thing to come out of the pandemic situation for you?
Besides beer delivered to my door and good beer too.
That could
Uh,
that could be it.
we'll take that. I mean,
It doesn't need
it's,
to be profound.
yeah, that's a pretty good one. I think that, and like just it's given me a chance to really get settled into my new place and get it all set up. So I mean that's good too. There hasn't, to me, it's not been a super negative experience. It hasn't been easy. I don't think anyone's found it easy. But it hasn't really, like I've been pretty lucky with my job and everything, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, not every answer has to be profound. And
Yeah, we'll go.
the simplest things are often the best, just
Yeah,
in being able to enjoy the little things like being able to settle into a new house, enjoying the fresh beer, having a fresh perspective on how important mental health is to you as an individual, not even to society at large, just to yourself, just to know yourself a little more. That's all important.
totally.
So that's great. At another opportunity, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the beers that you're ordering to yourself. But
Sure.
I think it's been a very interesting chat, very fluid, episode 11. And I'd like to now move to my favorite segment, Pivo's 10 questions. And just going to start with, what is your favorite word?
Ooh, lackadaisical
Nice one.
comes from a Pavement lyric. That's how I learned about it. It's nice. It's a $10 word, but it's also like about being lazy, so it covers all the bases.
Ironic that a word about being lazy is so long and difficult.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite word?
This one's more topical, I guess. Is moistly.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even like saying it.
There's like 4 or 5 people who hate that word.
Yeah,
What? Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, go.
Okay. What turns you on emotionally, spiritually, or sexually?
Well, I mean, for me, that's a really tough question. I don't think I'm going to share sexually, but I think like in terms of like stuff in life, like discovery. I think like discovering a new band, um, discovering a new awesome book, that kind of thing. I get really excited about that. Something that like resonates, and it's surprising that you come across these things in the like strangest places, but it's great. That's something that I get really excited about.
I like that. Discover them in the least expected places. I don't think anybody has answered the sexually thing, so
No, it's all good. It adds. I'm excited to see when it does happen that way. We'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens. A few
Yeah,
interviews left. What turns you off emotionally, spiritually, or sexually?
I think it's when someone is inflexible or intractable in opinion and like not even willing to entertain other perspectives.
Hmm.
That I find that yeah, that's a big turn off in a person.
Yeah, agreed. What sound or noise do you love?
um, I so I think my hi-fi. I love my hi-fi. Like it play. I play records on my like I got a record player, a nice like stereo system. I love that thing.
What's a hi-fi for those like me
Just
that don't know?
it's just a stereo. It's like a higher end stereo.
Okay, very cool. What sound or noise do you hate?
Chewing.
Okay. What's your favorite curse word?
That I like understate. I like to understate things. Like I'll say shoot or dang. I think that's hilarious, especially if it's like a real serious situation or like, and people are expecting you to freak out, and you're just like shoot. I like the classic like F word. There's this awesome scene in The Wire where they're it's like 5 or 10 minutes long of just them saying fuck. Like the two detectives are on a they're solving a crime at a crime scene, and they're just saying fuck, 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 and it's just amazing. It's got all the drama, all the different ways you can use it. It's beautiful. So
Uh,
I mean, I'll go with the classics.
yeah, that is
Shoot,
a classic.
shoot and fuck.
I love it. Shoot and fuck. Sounds like a night on the town. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting one. I sort of fell into my profession because I went to school for fine arts. So, I mean, I would love to be a painter. That would be freaking amazing. I kind of know what it would be like, but I still, to get paid to do that would be pretty sick.
Awesome. What profession then would you never want to do?
I think being a public figure, like a politician or something like that, I don't think I think it's a very tough job, and I definitely am not interested in sharing myself like that. So I feel like it would be like the worst possible fit, and it would be horrifying for everyone.
Okay, I like that answer. It's a different one. It's something to think about there.
Yeah, well, and I think there's lots of great people who are politicians, and it has nothing to do with that. It's just like I could not do it, and yeah.
It's a different perspective on why not to do it. Which a few people have given that. It's just like it's not something I could do, but I respect it. I appreciate your candor, your openness in doing this interview with me, and with sharing with everyone at home. And now we're going to drive this towards the end with the final question.
Okay.
If heaven exists, what would you want God to say to you when you reach the pearly gates?
I think, I mean, so it's sort of like too much for me to think about. Like I like, I'm pretty agnostic, I guess. I don't know. I think if I showed up to heaven and like I hope he would make some kind of joke, but I don't know what kind of joke that would be. Like, so because I would be pretty shocked at that point. And so I hope he like eases me into it. But that being said, like that doesn't necessarily mean I don't think there's an afterlife or something. I just don't think it's going to be that straightforward. And I'm also, yeah. So I'm just like, I'll be like, it's like, you were wrong. Maybe that's what he should say to me, or she.
And you know what? Like, the question here isn't to solve the unsolvable question of whether there is an afterlife. It's just the assumption of it exists. And I like that. It's like, well, I don't necessarily believe that it exists, but if it does, I'll be shocked. So I hope he makes a joke. So I like the little nuances there.
Well, and I love the idea of faith in something. So that part I can really get behind. I don't know. I read this book. It's a movie too called The Life of Pi. I've never seen the movie, but the book is one of those things where I didn't know if I would really like it or not, but I really enjoyed it just because of how faith is sort of addressed in that novel. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that I hope he says or she says you were wrong, and then that would be all right, I guess.
Okay, I like that. I like that. One of the best answers that I've heard to that question, not that anybody's answers has been bad, but one of the best answers that I heard was, I was talking about the interview style with a friend, and buddy was just like, so I asked him, what would you say if heaven exists? And God's like, he laughed and he just went, well, God would look at me. He would take one look at me and he would go, I guess we're just letting anybody in.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you again for sharing everything, and thank you for everyone at home for taking the time to get to know Ben. I will see you all in the next one. Adios.
Not used to working, not used to living this way. I'm used to rolling around, skating foot by myself. I really wish I could go and not look after you